Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show. It's been a few months since Olivia Chow took office as the mayor of Toronto. It's the biggest city in Canada and certainly presents us some challenges that are unique to Toronto, but not necessarily ununique. I'm inventing words there for the rest of the country, and I'm beyond delighted to welcome Mayor Olivia Chow to the show to talk about some of the issues facing the city. Good morning, Mayor Chow. Thank you so much for making time to talk to me this morning.
Good morning.
Mayor Chow, I would like to start this conversation in a time machine. If we flashed back 12 months ago, could you ever have imagined that you'd be chatting with me this morning as the mayor of Canada's biggest city?
Oh gosh, what a great question, Dave. Not at all. I might be chatting with you on other issues, but probably as ordinary citizens of Toronto, teaching people how to get politically connected to the city and to different levels of government, but certainly not as the mayor of Toronto. Here I am, though.
And it was quite the turn of events, and I'm so glad we get a chance to talk today because there are a lot of issues that are pressing in Toronto, but that also connect to the rest of the country as well. And one of those is housing affordability, and that's become one of your central focuses since you took over. What led you to prioritize the issue as a top concern?
Well, housing needs cut across every aspect of our life. And if housing is not affordable, then it makes it really difficult for people to have a good standard of living. And people get anxious if they get evicted. People get anxious if they think they might get evicted. People get anxious if they are worried about not being able to pay the mortgage. People get anxious because if they get laid off or something happens, if they get sick, then they might not be able to pay the next month rent, and then what's going to happen to them? So building good housing, a lot of it, quickly, and a good percentage of it affordable is my top priority because it doesn't matter who you are. And we know that 1 out of 10 people go to food banks. Why? Because the rent, by the time they finish paying rent, they can't afford much afterwards, even if they're working. So housing has to be a top priority for all levels of government.
Mayor Chow, I like the way that you put that because it's not just simply someone in a low income bracket or someone who's strictly working class who's dealing with the housing affordability crisis. It's pretty much everybody in the city at this point, and it's pretty much everybody in the province and across the country with the way housing prices are going. So what kind of strategies do you want to put into place to start mitigating the affordability issue?
Well, housing is as I said, touches every aspect of our lives. But that's why I have a blueprint that we have put together that identified all the City of Toronto sites that we could make available to build rent-controlled rental housing. We plan to built 65,000 units of rent-controlled homes, a mix of rent geared to income, below market, market rentals, and it will be done through the publicly developed housing. It could be nonprofit, and we have put aside some money into a reserve fund so that we could buy some of the housing that might be some apartments or some buildings that might be up for sale, so we can make them affordable so people won't be so anxious about being evicted. And hopefully sometime this week, we will get a final approval for the Housing Accelerator funds from the federal government because we locked down the provincial government money, but that's only if we could also get some federal money. That would be really a really helpful.
Yeah, the Prime Minister has been on that tour. He was in Vancouver on Friday making a similar announcement. So certainly some good news this week would go a long way. Mayor Chow, what are the unique challenges that Toronto presents in regards to housing? Because to my brain, I feel like density's got to be a big one right there.
Absolutely. You're good brain. You got it. Yep. Because there are lots of buildings right now that are really short. And we could build, especially along Transit Hub, we could build much higher buildings. And we could also unleash some of the homeowners if they want to renovate their homes into 4 units and 4 stories kind of building, including the basement. We could do that. So higher densities means that we could create a lot more housing a lot faster, especially around the transit corridor, like subway stations and LRT stations.
Speaking of transit, there's only about 2.5 minutes left before we hit the network hard out here. But what do you see as the future for public transit in the city? Because it has its ups and it has its downs, but I'm curious what kind of imprint you'd like to make on the TTC and public transit in the city over the course of the next few years.
Well, it needs to be reliable, fast, and safe, and accessible. So we need new subway cars. When I first came on, I immediately increased the services because there was a fare increase. I don't know whether you remember, and service cuts, which means that's a double whammy. So we said, no. Let's increase the service back to the pre-pandemic level, which by and large we've done. Not perfect yet. And let's buy some new subway cars so that it's accessible. So it's because the old one are on Bloor Street is the lifespan is ending. We also need to make sure that every stations are accessible. So there are lots to do, and that's our plan. We are going to make accessible station from 54 stations to 70 stations. And that is something that I'm committed to.
One more question here in regards to public transit. Going back to the uniqueness of Toronto as the country's biggest city that's also surrounded by some of the country's biggest suburbs that don't fall under the city's jurisdiction, how challenging is that for you and your colleagues to build a system that kind of speaks to each other and works in integration?
You're talking about myself, our cities, and all the cities across Canada.
Well, but even the cities around Toronto, right? The suburbs that are gargantuan, but that operate under their own jurisdiction.
Well, I'm an active member. I'm in a WhatsApp group of the Big City Mayor Caucus in Ontario. We just met on Friday, and one of the things we are saying is that we're asking the federal government to help us with the refugees funding, because as you know, there's a lot of refugees coming into not just Toronto, but all across the GTA, and we're looking for support. We meet quite regularly, this Big City Mayor Caucus, and we work very closely together. So on issues of fairness, on housing, on public transit, public services, you name it, we work together. So very, very good working relationship, because sometimes you can't tell, you're just coming through from Mississauga to Toronto, you know, it's just it's the Etobicoke Creek.
Yeah, it's
I'm in Toronto now. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of an invisible line, but all of a sudden the whole operation changes.
But you know, the difference is that because of the New Deal, we have now uploaded the Garner, because the Garner, if you're driving from Mississauga to Toronto,
right,
all of a sudden it belongs to the city. Whoa, that doesn't make sense.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Mayor Chow, I was so grateful to chat with you this morning. Congratulations on your political success and best of luck with these initiatives over the course of the next year.
Thank you, Dave. I look forward to coming back and rejoining. Hope we have more conversation together so I could learn more from your team.
I'd love that. I would love that. That is Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.